I know I shouldn't say this, but so far, no technical issues because there's been storms where Chris is from and it knocked out his internet, but we think we're back on. Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay? I think we're all right.
Absolutely. To be honest, I think these storms may have solved your internet problem because it's never been clearer. We've got the full white bars and everything.
Ah, fantastic. Well, yeah, bring it on.
Now, we were going to do the Facebook Live thing so that people could actually experience what you're holding up. But
Yeah.
the problem is that we've just looked and the camera kit that we've got, we don't yet know how to use it through Zoom. So we're going to hopefully do it on a future show when we've got all the proper camera rigs set up and you'll be able to see Chris and you'll be able to see me at the same time. So at the moment, we'll just do the regular format. But for those who don't know, Chris joins us every Monday and it's our feature, Digging in the Dirt. Now, Chris is not only senior lecturer at Moorlands College, but he's also got a rather keen interest in archaeology. Now, over the years, he's travelled the world looking for things and digging for things. And in fact, Chris, if you were to highlight the greatest thing that you've ever found, what would it be?
Well, okay, the greatest thing, it's a team effort, really, and being part of a team out in Galilee and Israel, finding as a team, not just me, right, but finding as a team a gateway from 3,000 years ago, a 3,000-year-old. So this is a gateway that was in use at the time of King David, with towers and fortifications and a shrine. So that was a team of us that were doing it, but to discover that and open it up and see that plaza where people stood, and we know it was a town that King David visited at the very time those stones were in use. That's got to be the standout for me. But there's some little, smaller objects and so on that were more personal. And, there is something spine tingling when out of all that earth, and maybe it's been a couple of days, you found nothing much, comes something really beautiful, small. Clearly, human beings have made it and manufactured it. So those little things sometimes, those are really spine tingling when you find them.
Now, this morning, our good news story, we were talking about this 17th century gold ring which has been found. Now, they've dated it back to about 1620, and it was found in Devon in the garden, on the land, I suppose, of a 71-year-old man who was doing a bit of weeding and digging. And then 10 inches deep under the ground, he found this ring. Now, the initials on it are actually, they've traced it back to one of the first owners of the home. Now, I want to ask you, in these situations, it's actually got the homeowner's initials on the ring. Who owns this? Who can actually take claim of it, Chris?
Well, as you often point out, I'm not a lawyer, so do not take my opinion as legal authority here. But I mean, yeah, if it's on your land, you do have a claim on it. However, with something of historic value like that, it should be reported to what we call the Portable Antiquities Scheme, PAS. And you'll have one in your local area. It's a government agency, the Portable Antiquities Scheme, and they will actually be the kind of neutral arbiters who decide who it belongs to. Now, it may be when you report it, it's discovered that it belongs to the state. Because if it's of particular historic interest and value, let alone, like financial value, actually the state has got a claim to it. And, as Indiana Jones would have said, it belongs in a museum, right? So you do have to be careful with the value of something you find, even if it is on your own land. However, the Portable Antiquities Scheme is not trying to rob you of anything, and you would be compensated if it is of great financial value. So with anything like that, if it's something small, it's on your land, it's not maybe that old, that's one thing. But something of that kind of history and value, you've really got to report it to the Antiquities Scheme. You don't have to report it to the descendants of the people who used to live there. It's not like that. It won't be given away to the ancestors of the descendants.
The phrase "finders, keepers, losers, weepers" is not something that applies to archaeology.
It won't stand up. It won't stand up in a court of law.
So we look forward to this feature every week, and what you do is you bring an artifact to the table, sometimes literally to the table because it's too heavy for you to pick up, like last week. But what have you got for us this week, Chris?
Okay, well, look, so people aren't going to see the screen this week, are they? They're not going to see the camera. So I'm actually going to just give you something that's only verbal. Okay, so I'm not going to show you something, but I will have a picture that we can put onto the internet when it goes out.
We will be able to watch it back. So it will be put on our socials at a later date, later on this afternoon, but you won't be able to see it live right now. So if you do want to hold anything up to the screen, that'd work.
Okay. So for those watching this, and when you see it later, this is what I'm going to hold up. And of course, Gareth is going to do the description, right, and tell us what he thinks it is. And I'm going to go up quite close to the screen. And
that just looks like an utter mess, I'll be honest. But it looks it looks like almost resin. So if you were to have a lot of people now, they have the front of their house with a resin on there, and it's like that strange sort of honey colored substance that dries and sets. But to me, that looks like, I wish I knew my rocks a lot better because I'd probably be able to tell you, but that looks a bit marble-esque, but it looks okay. So I think that's potentially, is it something volcanic?
No.
Okay,
no.
Right.
This is definitely archaeology, right? So it's definitely something somebody's made. You're absolutely right. It is a type of rock. You're quite right about that. Maybe we can have a go at guessing what the rock is after the music's played. But it's definitely, this is not natural. So somebody's done something with this one. And, I don't know if you can see any evidence of what it's been made into.
So you were holding it then in a certain way, which I think gave something away. And you're holding it. So let me try and explain. So this is almost like, do you know, in fact, I've got a great thing to compare this to. If you've got a budgie and you give it one of those rocks to chew on, I can't remember what it's called, Chris. It's like a sort of, it's a fish, isn't it? It's a dried fish that you give your bird something to chew on. Will somebody please help me out on this? I sound like an absolute lunatic. But basically...
Okay, I'll give you a clue, though. I'll give you a clue. Now, I'm holding in my hand probably the very earliest thing that people have ever made. So of all the archaeological things I've shared with you, this is a bit controversial because it depends how old the Earth is and so on. But this is as old as it gets. There's no artifact I've shared with you or showed you that is older than the one I'm holding in my hand.
So thank you to Eric, who's been in touch, and he says, I think you're referring to, Gareth, a cuttlebone or a cuttlefish, a dried one, which is what you give to your budgie. Exactly, that is what I was thinking. So it's in that shape of a cuttlefish and a cuttlebone that you give your budgie, but it's made of some sort of stone. And I think when Chris said that it's one of the earliest things, it will probably have something to do with hunting. It will probably have something to do with cutting. So I'm going to go for some sort of knife, some sort of hunting material, some sort of hunting object. If from my description, which I very doubt it, you can guess what this is, then you need to use WhatsApp. The number is 0161 511 9555. We'll be back with Chris in just a moment. I can't contain myself any longer. Not because of we're about to find out what Chris has got. Well, we found out what he's got already, but we'll find out what he's for. But I've just had that all-important message from DPD UK saying that your parcel will arrive between 10:41 and 11:41, and your driver is called Marcin. So excited, genuinely. I am pleased it's arriving at that time because I've got a meeting between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. And I don't think I have the barefaced cheek to cancel it because I need to go home and get a parcel. So thankfully I won't have to now. For those getting in touch to have a go at what Chris was holding up. Now, I know it's difficult, but that's part of the fun, I suppose. Is it... Oh, this is a good one from Lynn. And she says, is it a pumice stone made as a tool? A pumice stone made as a tool. Now, I always thought that a pumice stone, is that something that you take all that crusty bit off the soles of your feet with?
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, surely it's something a lot more important than that. And it's not, well, this is what the Romans used to use to get all those blisters off their feet with. Other people saying clearly, if it's one of the oldest things that Chris has got, it will be something to do with hunting or something to do with maybe cooking the item that you've hunted. So I think we're going to go for, as a team, a Connect Radio team, I think we're going to go for something to do with hunting and maybe cutting things up. So a knife, something like that.
Brilliant. Well, the Connect team is doing really, really well. So, yeah, this is not pumice stone. This is flint, and this is a Stone Age hand axe. Now, as an axe, it's more than an axe. Actually, it's made out of flint first of all, so it's a really good hard stone, and it's been sharpened to create a blade. And there's actually more than just a blade here. It's been shaped to be able to do a few things actually. Now, the blade is something that was done by just chipping away at the flint from both sides. You can find Stone Age, this is what this really is, okay, it's Stone Age. You can find Stone Age tools everywhere. If you keep your eyes out, people do find them just lying around on the ground, Stone Age tools, because they survive incredibly well. I mean, they're stone, right? So they survive for thousands of years. And also, well, they survive, I would say thousands of years. They just survive the whole history of human history. And you know that they are made by people because there's no natural process that would create a blade. And for those watching this later on, you'll see there's a blade here because there's no natural process that would do this chipping, napping on both sides of the rock to create a blade all around the edge. And that means that this could be used for many things. Now, I said Stone Age, right? This is how archaeologists date things. They date things according to the tools people were using. But there's a Stone Age, an Iron Age. Between those, there's a Bronze Age, a Copper Age. So people went through different kinds of technology. This goes way back. Now, okay, in terms of dating, that's a whole, you'd have to sign up at Moorlands College to do a whole course on, not on dating going out with somebody, but dating as in how old is the earth and how old have people been around? Because that's a big, big topic. But this certainly goes back to the beginning of when human beings were active on this planet. And what we find is this flint stone axe, they'll call it a hand axe. Actually, it's a Swiss army knife of the ancient world because it could do multiple things. It was beautifully made. It is actually quite beautiful. It's not a cuttlefish. If you see it in the light in a natural kind of place, it's beautifully made. Somebody cared about this. It would have been quite, valuable as a tool. Wouldn't have just dropped it. They would have kept hold of this. It was polished, which is why I say it looks like resin. And the blade is really good for cutting. But you've also got a blunt tool as well that could be used for hammering something. You've got something that could kill. I mean, you talk about pumice stone being good for getting the crusty bits off a foot. Well, this would take your foot off, not just the crusty bits. It's a very solid bit of tool. But it's also got a fine cutting edge, so you could skin a fish or skin an animal. And so this is your Swiss army knife in the ancient world. You carry around and you could use multiple purposes. And Gareth, what I love about this kind of thing. Now, by the way, I will just say, this came from France. It's dated to hundreds of thousands of years ago. Now, that depends on how old the earth is and so on, but it's dated long, long ago. And it was actually handed down to me. It was my grandfather, I think it came down through. So they picked it up. So I didn't find it myself. And this has been sort of handed down and so on. But what it tells us is that people in ancient times were really intelligent, clever people. When you think of Adam and Eve and the book of Genesis and the first people spreading out around the world, don't think of them as Stone Age, ignorant savages, not able to do much more than eat berries and club people over the head with a stick. They were intelligent people who created beautiful things. And that's one of their products, is Stone Age axe.
I always wonder, wouldn't it be incredible to go back in time and to see, who was the person who discovered that something larger needs to be cut up into smaller pieces? And how did they know that basically something with an edge like that, with force applied, would cut it up into smaller pieces? It must have been, was that something that developed over years? And basically they were finding big animals and just trying to eat them as a whole or just bite into the animal. And then they decided, wouldn't it be great if we could cut it into smaller bits? I wonder how that conversation happened.
Yeah, well, that's the general way that people think about it. That you go from like really simple to then getting more and more sophisticated as time goes by. Do you know though, Gareth? I do wonder about that. I wonder about that because I wonder with Adam and Eve. Actually, they would have been very intelligent to start with. They knew lots of things. Is it more the case that in the ancient world there were men and women who knew all sorts of really clever, sophisticated stuff, and it declined. The knowledge went down. We forgot things we were supposed to remember. We forgot how to do certain things. Do you know, if we were on a deserted island, if we were, Gareth, you and me, left on a deserted island, some of the listeners might like that idea. If we were left there and we had to start from scratch, absolute from zero with how to do stuff, what would we do? I mean, you know how to use the 3D printer, and I know how to teach theology, but
This is the thing,
how are we
isn't
going to
it?
light a fire?
Because, do you know, there is. I think we're onto something here because, do you know, I was talking to my plumber friend, and he said that he is inundated with work because now less and less people are training as plumbers. So
Yeah.
that art form and that skill is gradually, I suppose you could say, dying out in a way
Yeah.
because people aren't learning it anymore. I mean, for example, welding. A
Yeah.
friend of ours is a commercial welder, and Lee says all the time that, he gets paid a lot of money because not many people can do it. Because welding,
Yeah.
apart from him, I've never met anybody who says, I really want to be a welder when I grow up. But it's something that we need all the time.
Yeah.
He was telling me about, at the moment, the army, because they're sending so many firearms and that kind of stuff abroad to help in the likes of Ukraine, that welding, they're now needing more and more welders to weld the tanks and to weld the guns and stuff. But like you say, maybe they knew it back then, but gradually over time it's died out.
Yeah, because this stone axe, actually, this is really hard to make. It's not a simple thing to be able to chip away and nap away to create the right kind of blade, the right shape, the right sort of sides to it. That is a really, really clever thing to manufacture. And people don't know how to do that nowadays. I mean, there are a few people around the world who really, really practice and work it out, but it's not common knowledge anymore. Hey, Moorlands College, by the way, the job that we are really struggling to fill right now, and if a listener out there has got this skill, we are struggling to get a chef. We've got theologians, but we need a chef. It's really hard to recruit a chef. So anybody listening who's got that sort of skill set and managing a kitchen and so on, if you want to come and serve in a Christian community, we really want you, because that's a skill set as well that we're desperate for. And who'd have thought? I mean, food, basic thing we need, but we need a chef.
It is amazing. Do you know, I love it when it's almost, certainly in my mind, enlightenment, where I've gone, I never thought about that, because we always imagine that, like you said, Adam and Eve and early man were probably stumbling around in just darkness, banging into walls and stuff. But it wouldn't have been like that. And maybe they had the skills, but we have lost these skills. Like, for example, you use that of, us on a desert island. No offense, but we'd be absolutely useless. Because our skills every day, I mean, probably I would know how to push, whittle a stick. I'm sure you would as well. I'd probably have a go at lighting a fire because I've watched a few Bear Grylls programs, and I'll probably pick up a random stone and just start belting it on another stone. But if we were maybe 400 years ago, we would have those skills. We would know a lot more how to live off the land.
Yeah. Yeah. You know your way around a smartphone or whatever. You know your way around the radio kit, because that's all you're thinking about. But of course, in the past, so many skills that they would have had that we've just forgotten, and we'd have to recover.
I love this kind of conversation, and you can have it every day if you were to see what I did there, shoehorning in the purpose of this feature. Moorlands College, moorlands.ac.uk is where you need to go to. And don't forget, they are looking for a chef. So if you know anybody, or you yourself, you think, I'd absolutely love that opening. Well, you get in touch with the college directly, moorlands.ac.uk, all the courses they offer, and if you've got any questions, they're on hand to answer those questions. Thank you very much, Chris. Always a treat to have you on,
Thanks,
and
Jeff.
we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you. Bye now.